Welcome back to the channel. A couple of months ago, I introduced you to the Javelin, a fantastic solo duo trio base with a roof stability bunker at its core. While this base is one of my personal favorites, its defenses left a lot to be desired. Since then, I've been hard at work on a multi-TC version that will cater to committed small groups who want a strong base with tons of features and defenses. Before we get started, I'd like to give special thanks to these people from the Easy Building Discord for providing invaluable feedback and ideas for this base over the last couple of months. Without their input, today's build would not have been possible. If you're not already on that Discord, I highly recommend you join via the link in the description. But with that being said, let me introduce you to the multi-TC version of the Javelin, a small group base for active players who value online and offline defense capabilities. It can be built from a starter and in stages as you progress throughout the wipe, without breaking the bank on upkeep when compared to other bases of its size and features. It can easily be enclosed in a compound with various gatehouse and external disconnectable TC designs. This is the total cost for the build, which includes all structures and deployables, and the combined upkeeps. In ideal conditions, the cheapest route to the main TC will be about 30 rockets. To reach all the loot rooms, raiders will need to spend about 38 rockets. If raiders want full building privilege, they'll have to spend an additional 14 rockets to disconnect your external TCs from you. Although this will only reduce the building privilege overlap and does not get raiders access to the actual TCs. For that, they'll have to spend 6 more rockets, bringing the total cost to disable both externals to 26 rockets, or about 64 rockets for a full raid including all TCs and loot rooms. Here's a tour of the base. From the outside, we enter the compound through one of the 2 Alone in Tokyo style gatehouse entrances. The gatehouse provides excellent visibility to check for door campers or engage players on both sides of the walls. Past the airlock, we have 2 semi-secure large boxes to temporarily dump loot. Entering into the compound, we are greeted by multiple auto turrets that cover most angles within the walls. This allows us to safely refine resources with 2 large furnaces without the fear of grubbers. Entering the base through these armored doors will bring us to our first wing of the base, which houses utility items and drop boxes. You can squeeze 7 large boxes in this area, with 2 optional vending machines integrated into the wall honeycomb. On the other side, we find a mixing table, CCTV station, optional fridge in the honeycomb, and one of the 2 large battery circuits. Above us is peek down battlements to repel raiders. The corridor is also protected by an auto turret to aid in your defense. Below that is the external auto turret pod, which can be manually toggled from within the base. Going up the shotgun trap protected ladder hatch will bring us to the main living space. This base manages to provide tons of storage and deployables while staying very accessible. Going up this ladder hatch brings us to the upper levels of the base. Before that, we'll make our way to the second wing of the base, which has more utility items. Likewise on this side, the corridor is protected by an auto turret. One side has tons of furnaces, while the other has a crude oil refinery. Past the tier 3 brings us to one of our main loot rooms that provides the equivalent of 10.4 large boxes worth of loot. Next to that is a large battery that powers our most critical electrical components like auto turrets. This multi-TC version uses the same fantastic roof stability core as the solo duo trio version. Simply build a high quality metal roof when you log off, and hatchet the wood foundation when you log on to break the seal. On this wall are smart switch controllers to remotely toggle turrets, garage doors, and base lights. Between these vending machines is an embrasure and reinforced window which keeps the main tool cupboard 8 rockets away from raiders. Heading out of the core, we'll make our way to the upper levels of the base through this ladder hatch. On this level is 6 beds with respective lockers to quickly respawn and re-gear at. Above this hatch is the minicopter hangar and additional battlements, which we'll come back to in a minute. First, we'll be looking at the defenses we have on this floor. As mentioned before, these peek downs will help in repelling raiders during an online raid. This floor has several roof battlements for angles into the compound. The access chutes into the corridor allow you to quickly get to the ground floor or surprise raiders with a unique angle. More auto turrets that can be toggled from inside the base. Use this airlock as a quick exit access into the compound to sneakily flank players or secure raid equipment. Heading back into the bedroom quarters, we'll make our way to the minicopter hangar and shooting floor battlements. Outside the hangar are 2 landing pads equipped with flashing lights for nighttime landings. Above us are even more roof battlements, which we'll come back to in a second. This shooting floor provides various windows, pillbox style defenses, and external peek downs from multiple angles into the compound and surrounding area. There's even a gimmicky grenade hole to bounce grenades down onto unsuspecting enemies. The outside roof battlements provide moderate protection, good angles, fantastic maneuverability, but are most importantly aesthetically beautiful. Above the minicopter hangar is a partially covered roof battlement protected by 2 optional auto turrets. On top of that is a windmill and solar panels. Finally, we'll make our way back outside the compound to one of the novel external disconnectable TC designs that is 100% non-soft-sidable. Simply break this twig half wall to temporarily reduce the building privilege if you need to replace your main TC. Then, replace the twig and sheet metal frame to restore the connection. Let's jump into the build. First, find a nice piece of flat land. This can be a beach or ice lake. This should be a reasonably large area. Start by claiming the area with a starter unit. Place a TC onto the triangle close forward and centered. If you need to enclose it with a window frame, you'll have to make sure that you can upgrade the foundation to high quality metal later before you surround it with adjacent foundations. If you do enclose it now, use a reinforced window if you have it, or wooden window bars. Similar to the solo duo trio version, initially it's not very secure or spacious. Because of this, I recommend gathering the resources to progress to this extended starter stage as soon as possible. Build out the following foundations, with this one being raised. On this triangle, build a half-height wooden shelf which will assist with entering into the base. Upgrade the rest to stone with the exception of the square foundation, which must remain wood. Use 2 double doors for your airlock entrance. Occupy this window frame with a reinforced window if you've got one. Next, build a half-height shelf and upgrade it to wood. This will eventually become one of the main loot rooms, but for now you can comfortably fit 6 large boxes. Close it off with another double door. Downstairs, put furnaces, a tier 1, or extra storage in the triangles. On the square foundation, have temporary twig stairs. This will eventually get replaced with a ladder hatch and roof stability bunker once we seal the honeycomb where we have our starting deployables. Eventually, you'll close off the raised foundation with half-height sheet metal and stone walls. Next, we'll build the first wing of the base and establish its external disconnectable TC. This next stage can be progressed as you acquire the resources for it. However, for it to be completely secure to safely utilize the extension, it would require extensive materials. Start by building a triangle foundation, followed by 9 squares. Leave the last one and remove these 8, including the triangle at the end. Then, build back 4 half moons, followed by a square. Alternatively, if you're short on space, from the triangle, build out 6 squares. Leave the last one and remove these 5, including the triangle at the end. Then, come back with 2 half moons, followed by a square. Remove the triangles and the square. Build out 4 more squares. Then come back with 2 half moons, followed by a square. We can now build out the following footprint and remove the excess foundations. We've now established what will become one of 2 wings of the base. However, there's no actual TC connected, so we'll have to establish an external TC compartment outside the building privilege of our main TC while keeping it connected to our new extension. You can use several different designs to accomplish this. If you're interested in seeing some alternative examples, be sure to check out the card or the link in the description to my most recent guide. Regardless of which design you go with, building these early to secure the area for a future compound should be a priority. Today, we'll be using a novel external disconnectable TC design that is 100% non-soft-sidable. From the wing extension, specifically from this triangle, build out 2 square foundations, then 2 triangles, followed by 3 more square foundations, and lastly 6 triangles to form a hexagon. Upgrade the following to stone and remove the twig. Do not upgrade this half-height wall past twig. Place a TC centered in this triangle. Build a defensive shell as you require the resources for it, but not before prioritizing the external TC. Back at the core, add a layer of honeycomb to this triangle. Build another wooden half-height shelf which will provide access into the base through our new entrance which we're about to make. In these 3 triangles we'll make another 6 large box loot room. Keep low value items in these boxes or use them strictly for drop boxes until further expansion. Then occupy these 3 frames with sheet metal double doors. Enclose the first half-height wooden shelf with stone honeycomb. Then close off this triangle with a stone frame, sheet metal door, and wall. Use furnaces to maneuver between the floors. Close off this chute with walls and a sheet metal door. Lastly, we'll temporarily enclose what will eventually become our peak downs with wooden floors so that we can utilize the corridor with low value deployables. Place the floors so that they're connected to these corresponding wall sockets. Be aware that some determined players may be able to spear out the adjacent walls through the multi-TC gaps to gain access to the corridor. Once you acquire more resources, you'll repeat the same process on the other side to establish the second wing of the base. The exception this time being an additional triangle foundation which will become our main entrance airlock. In this spot we can fit up to 7 large boxes in the square and 2 optional vending machines in the dual purpose honeycomb. Build a half-height shelf, making sure to also build a triangle piece into the honeycomb behind it. Then replace the square with a triangle shelf to squeeze 3 more large boxes above these 4. On the outside of the base, you should be able to see and upgrade the clipping twig piece in the honeycomb to wood if you're concerned about replacing the 3-box shelf in the event it gets destroyed. In the other corner, you can put a fridge in the honeycomb, followed by a mixing table, CCTV station, and large battery in front of it. Later in the video, I show you the schematics for this circuit. Next, we'll finalize the core honeycomb, which will require us to upgrade these foundations and walls to sheet metal as we won't have access to all of them past this point. Then, build an auto turret pod, ensuring the garage doors are facing inward to be able to toggle the rollers through the window frame on the inside of the base. Repeat this on the other side of the core to create the Javelin's tips. We can now hatchet out these wooden floors since we're going to be securing this level with peak down battlements and bedrooms. Build stone triangle floors and upgrade the center squares to stone. On the perimeter, build these walls, window frames, double door frames, and single door frames. Occupy these respective spots with stone double door frames. Some of these will have garage doors, while some are only there to hide the gaps. Build out the bedroom quarters with 2 single door airlocks on both sides. When building out the walls, you'll only be able to occupy the wall socket from the extension. This will leave a small gap that can be reasonably concealed. However, from above, there's a much more noticeable gap which cannot be easily concealed without using roofs. Be aware that players can exploit this gap by looting, spear raiding, or shooting rockets through it. For now, we'll finalize the bedrooms by sectioning them with window frames and double door frames. Occupy the window and door frames with their respective deployables. In the window battlements, use stone barricades to improve downward line of sight angles. Use siren lights in the cracks of the peak downs to prevent players from easily squeezing through or yourself from falling into the corridor. In the bedroom quarters, the garage doors will have to be placed first and opened. Then, you can fit up to 6 beds by placing them in this orientation. If you're having difficulty placing the beds, make sure the garage doors on the floor below are closed. Put lockers in the 2 triangles. Make sure these have code locks on them to prevent players from being able to loot them through the gap in the ceiling. Use campfires in the single door frames to improve maneuverability onto the beds. Replace all the sheet metal double doors with garage doors, working your way outward as you get the gears for them. Additionally, once you acquire the armored door BP, replace your main entrance airlock doors and the outermost door on both of your compound quick exits. As you acquire the resources, upgrade the respective building blocks to their final build grade. Prioritize the core and work your way out. If you haven't already upgraded the TC compartment foundation to high quality metal, do that and then seal it with a window frame. In front of the TC, place 2 vending machines. Make sure that they're placed as close to the frame and as straight as possible. Make sure you keep a slit between them to access the TC. Then, place a reinforced window and a vertical embrasure. If placed correctly, this will ensure raiders have to spend about 8 rockets to get access to the TC. Remember to disable broadcasting. Upgrade the following to high quality metal. Then, upgrade the rest to sheet metal as shown. On the outside of the base, upgrade these walls to sheet metal. When upgrading, remember to also upgrade the foundations to sheet metal. Upgrade the external disconnectable TCs to their final build grades and finalize the interiors. Use 3 triangle frames to prevent players from building twig onto the external towards what will become our future compound. At any point after you've established your external disconnectable TCs, if you've got the resources and a high external wall researched, you can build out 2 gatehouse entrances to establish a proper compound. For demonstrative purposes, I finished upgrading my base prior to establishing a compound. In actuality, while you should definitely be making upgrades from your core outward as you get the resources for it, getting a compound up as early as possible will provide more protection, allow you to expedite your resource manufacturing with large furnaces, and establish yourself into your area. On the far side of your main entrance, from this corner on the extension, build out a triangle followed by 3 square foundations. Place 3 double door frames and then remove the twig foundations. Single door frames go on the opposing corners and the rest become window frames. I recommend keeping reinforced windows on these at all times. You can temporarily pick them up to shoot at players. Just make sure that you are using horizontal embrasures. Occupy the middle door frame with a double sheet metal door that swings outward towards the entrance. Put 2 large boxes in this corner. These boxes will not be very secure, so consider code locking them to slow players down from easily looting them through the window if you get killed while it's picked up. Also, don't leave high value items in these. They're strictly meant to temporarily store loot to get you back to a fight without having to fully get into your base to depot. On the main entrance side of your base, you'll have to use the following triangle and square foundations to build floating double door frames. Otherwise, build out the same gatehouse design. Once you have all the structures established, you can now place your high external walls. At the floating double door frames of your external TC, place your first wall parallel to the half-height triangle so that the wall is clipped through the frame like shown. Then, place a second wall next to it, making sure it's as straight as possible. If placed correctly, 2 more walls will perfectly line up with this back left corner of the gatehouse. On this side, place another straight wall, followed by a diagonal wall from the gatehouse and 1 last 90-degree wall. Repeat the same process on the opposite side to fully enclose the base with the compound. Placing walls consistently can be challenging, so here's a couple quick pro tips. First and foremost, I highly recommend you practice placing these walls on a build server. Frequently use the Alt key to free look to ensure your placement is as straight as possible. When connecting the gatehouses to the walls, start with a wall placed off of the gatehouse and then fill in the gap. You can also use temporary electrical wire guides to make sure that the walls are straight. It will require a great deal of precision and experience to consistently line the walls up every time to avoid gaps, so builder beware. You should also know that if you use this external design, in the event that the floating double door frames are destroyed, you will not be able to place them back unless the high external walls are not present, as they block placement of building blocks and clipping them through the walls. Lastly, we'll put metal barricades on the gatehouses, on these external TC triangles, and in these corners of the main base. Next, I'll show you my recommendations for final furnishings. Place a locker against this wall and 2 drop boxes next to it. 3 sleeping bags can fit in front of it. On this triangle, put 2 vending machines against this wall. Remember to disable broadcasting. If you need more storage, you can easily turn these 6-box loot rooms into hyper-efficient loot rooms by using drop boxes, small boxes, and barbecues. This particular design holds the equivalent of 10.4 large boxes worth of loot. Start by placing a large box into all 4 corners. In between them, put a barbecue and small box. Put 4 drop boxes on the walls by placing them from the corridor. Lastly, place 4 more barbecues with small boxes under them. Repeat this in the other loot room. A large battery and its electrical components fit into this triangle. Later in the video, I show you the schematics for this circuit. If you plan on using multiple electrical circuits, I recommend hooking up critical infrastructure like auto turrets to this battery, as it's the most protected. Utilize shotgun traps wherever you see fit. Prioritize ladder hatches, then airlocks. Place a tier 3 against this wall with a small box underneath it. Against this wall in the core of the base, I like to keep the remote switches to toggle auto turret pod doors, base lights, or SAM site if applicable. Occupy the external auto turret pods and corridor triangles with auto turrets. I usually equip these with MP5s for personal reasons, but pythons or better yet bolties will also work exceedingly well. On the first wing extension, you can put a water barrel into one of the honeycombs and a composter into the second one next to the oil refinery if you use a garage door instead of a window frame. A large planter fits into the center square. The last major expansion we'll be making to the base will be adding a minicopter hangar, shooting floor battlements with peak downs, and roof battlements. Whether you decide to build my version or your own, pay special attention to the gaps and conceal them where possible with walls, roofs, or door frames. So let's start by making the minicopter hangar to conceal that particular gap. Start by building these respective windows, double doors, and triangle frames. Occupy them accordingly. Next, build out the following floor pieces, which will become your external peak downs. For the roofs, make sure they occupy the floor socket closest to you. Then, place a double door frame next to each roof. Build these window frames and pillbox style defenses. On the square frames, put a single door frame on both sides, followed by another pillbox style battlement closest to you. Repeat this on the second square frame. Close off the ceiling and then the square frames with a roof piece on each. Occupy the window frames with horizontal embrasures, the single door frames with sheet metal doors, and the double door frames with prison cell gates. Use campfires or small boxes to increase the line of sight out of the windows. Repeat the battlements on the opposite side. Last is the roof battlements. Start by adding 3 roofs on both sides facing away from the sheet metal hexagonal landing pads. Then, above the minicopter hangar, attach roof pieces on the edges. Thanks to the multi-TC design, we're able to retain the old style of roof peaks without them connecting to each other. Then, place 5 double door frames, followed by these roof tiles. Put stone barricades as you see fit on the roof battlements. They won't provide great protection, but they don't require any upkeep. Lastly, on top of the base, put a windmill and solar panels. Finally, let's talk about the electrical systems. For the most protected battery, I would either use this schematic, which can power 6 auto turrets and an optional SAM site, or this schematic, which can power up to 9 auto turrets. The second, less secure battery should only have non-essential electrical components. If you're using the 6 or 9 auto turret circuit options for the first battery, I recommend using this schematic for the second battery. But if you're really committed to having the up to 9 auto turret circuit and a SAM site, use this schematic. Using the windmill and solar panels, combine all of their power output and then split it between the two batteries. The windmill will be constantly generating power, while the solar panels will only create power during the day. This way, the solar panels charge most of the battery throughout the day, and then come nighttime the windmill holds the battery over until the next morning. Before we conclude the video, there is some important weakness analysis you must consider when building the space. First, since the space of course is multi-TC, it naturally leaves gaps in the walls and foundations. With this particular design, I've spent considerable time thoroughly testing which areas needed walls, double door frames, or roofs to conceal potential weak points thanks to the rocket splash. Nevertheless, it still may be possible for precise raiders to weasel rockets through what appears to be a non-existent gap to cause devastating splash. Additionally, if rockets are shot just at the right spot against this wall, they can sometimes even splash walls around the corners. While both of these methods are certainly possible, I would consider their consistent effectiveness improbable in most real-world situations. Despite these weaknesses, the base still offers tons of great features and defenses for committed small groups who want a unique base to carry them through the wipe. Remember that the gatehouses, disconnectable TCs, shooting floors, and roof battlements are all merely my recommendations. I encourage you to modify aspects of the design to fit your playstyle and upkeep tolerability. Regardless of what you decide, I hope you enjoyed the video. Consider subscribing for future content, and I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.